Good evening, those of you that are joining in. Thank you for joining us for tonight's financial aid night. I'm Jen Nectarline. I'm college and career counselor at Hunterdon Central, but not at Central. We decided to make this program virtual because why not get this same information from the comfort of your home, or maybe you're in the car driving somewhere, but Zoom gives us these capabilities, and it certainly makes it easier for our dear colleague and friend, Kristen Isaacson, who's with us tonight, who has made the trek out to Hunterdon Central for many, many years to do our financial aid night, but is coming live from Monmouth University tonight. So for those of you on and listening, know that our program is being recorded. So if you know anyone who misses it, just know we're recorded. And we'll get this posted to Hunterdon Central's YouTube station within the next couple of days. I know this is important information for a lot of people. So know that we are recording. A couple other logistics about tonight. We do have our chat feature is not on. However, we invite anybody listening tonight to put a question in the Q&A. So if you're on Zoom, whether you're on a phone, an iPad, or a computer, you will see a Q&A feature bar across the bottom. It might be across the top, depending on the device you're on. And that Q&A is open tonight for you to put questions in. I will say all questions are going to be answered at the end. We will carve out probably about 10 or 15 minutes to gather as many of those questions. Some of them will be overlapping and some common themes. And Kristen can take those questions that are much more advanced financial aid information. During the program, while my video will be turned off, I'll be watching the Q&A and certainly making sure we're good technology-wise. But any questions I can answer, I will answer. The audience that's on tonight can see any questions that we answer by type. You'll see those questions answered. Otherwise, you won't be able to see everybody else's questions, so that we can just keep an eye on those and monitor those. Any questions we answer live, we'll certainly do that as well. So again, Kristen's going to take it away. She's got lots of slides and information for you on what is a pretty big year in financial aid. And then, like I said, we'll aim for questions usually about 7:45, 7:50 or so. The program, the main slides have ended, and certainly, Kristen, if you need to alter that, go ahead. And we should be able to wrap up by about 8 p.m. And again, we're recording tonight, so if you miss any parts, you can come back and watch it. And again, I'll be watching the Q&A. All right. So thank you, Kristen, as always, for joining us. Unfortunately, we're not in person, but we're so glad that you could do this for us and bring us this information. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having me again, even though we're far away, but Zoom brings us closer. So yes, I'm here to talk to you about the financial aid process for the 24-25 school year. So I do want to let you know that this presentation is geared toward current seniors. So if I do have junior, sophomore, freshman families, know that you do take action on financial aid during the senior year. So just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. And so let's get started. I do want to make you aware that there are changes for 24-25.
Real quick, Kristen,
yes.
I'm so sorry, only because
Okay.
I do have my backup. If you want to, because you're sharing your screen, if you don't mind sliding, just to make your slide a little bit bigger, sliding your participant people over just a little bit. I happen to be watching on another laptop, and it just makes the slides really small. Does that make sense?
How's that? That's the smallest.
That's the smallest. Okay, perfect. That's fine. We can see the slides. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, no problem. Okay. So, there have been some major changes to the federal financial aid process for the 24-25 school year. And so I do want to make you aware that I've done the best that I can to provide you with both correct and up-to-date information in this presentation, but also note that everything related to the federal aid process is in this presentation. It is subject to change. Screenshots are subject to change. They may not look exactly like you see them when you get to the live site, because the federal government is still working on this process. So I just do want to make you aware of that, because this is the biggest overall overhaul to really the federal financial aid process since it has been in existence. So it's not just a change to the application, it's a change to how it's processed and the output, and also some eligibility as well. So let's get started talking about some of this. So I know everyone is anxiously awaiting the availability of the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. This is the federal application for aid and the form that basically all schools are going to ask you to complete. There may be more than this, and we'll talk about that in future slides. But at a minimum, a school is going to ask you to complete this application. It is expected to be available in December. A specific date has not yet been released. Checking every day for a release date, but that has not happened yet. So the best we know is that it will be sometime in the month of December that it will become available. If you're not already, following the social media for federal student aid, that's probably a good place, because I'm sure that the second that they can announce it, that's where that they will be announcing it, as well as on their website. So I do want to make you aware of the federal student aid website. It's studentaid.gov. And basically, this website is your one-stop shop for all things that are related to federal aid. You can complete your FAFSA through this website. You can learn about all of the federal aid programs. Should you decide to borrow any federal loans, whether it's student or parent loan, the applications and completing the loan process is done through this website. And then ultimately, when you go into repayment, there's information to assist you about repayment on this website as well. Now, when you go to complete the FAFSA, again, free application for federal student aid, you are going to complete an application for each student that you will have in college. So keep that in mind. It's not a family application and it's not a parent application. The FAFSA is a student aid application and does need to be completed for each student that you will have in college. In addition, you'll be using income information from 2 years prior. We call it prior year. So for the 24-25 FAFSA, that means you'll be using your income information from 2022. There are some different parts of the FAFSA that will use different dates, and I will point them out to you as we go through this. But as far as the tax year, it's 2022. If you're looking to get an idea of your eligibility under this new process, there is the federal student aid estimator that is available. You can access it through the link that I put up on the screen, or if you can just get yourself to studentaid.gov and get in under the tab for the FAFSA, you'll be able to find it there as well. This is not an official application. So whether you're a senior or a freshman and you want to try this, you can certainly do it, because it's not your actual application. But what it will do is give you an estimate of what we're calling the student aid index. This has replaced the expected family contribution, or EFC, for those of you that have done this process before. And so you can get an idea of your SAI under the new process, as well as an estimate of the federal aid eligibility. One thing I did want to mention, I get asked about what's the deadline to complete the FAFSA. So we talked and said that December is when it becomes available. So that's day one. As far as deadlines, those are going to be established by the individual colleges and universities that your student is interested in. So you'll need to check with their financial aid office, check their financial aid webpage for information about the deadline. The deadline may be tied to the admission deadline that the student is using, whether they're like an early decision student, early action, regular decision student, but that will be by the individual colleges and universities. You'll check them all out, see who has the earliest date. That's the date you want to complete your FAFSA by, okay? So that you make sure that you get it in by that earliest school, that way, and then all the other schools can receive it as well, and you've met your deadline. Now, one of the items that you'll need in order to complete the FAFSA is something called a studentaid.gov account. You may also hear this referred to as an FSA ID, or for those of you who already have a student in college and you have this FSA ID, it's the same thing. You don't need to get a new one. So those parents that already have an FSA ID for an older child, you don't need to get a new one. Can continue to use the same username and password that you'd set up for the prior student. What will be new for those families who've already got an FSA ID, you'll just need, or studentaid.gov account, you'll need one for now this next student that's going into school. In order to complete the application for the studentaid.gov account, you'll need a social security number. Please double and triple check that for the person that's applying, because that will be checked against the Social Security Administration. You'll need a mobile phone number or you have to provide at least a mobile phone number or an email address. You can provide both. This is to assist in recovering the information if you do lose it. And I also believe it's part of the multi-factor authentication process with this type of account as well. Now, one of the new vocabulary words with the new FAFSA process is something called a contributor. A contributor is someone who is contributing information to the FAFSA. So a contributor can be a student, it can be a parent, it can be a parent's spouse, it could be the student's spouse. So depending upon the specific situation. But that's the new term. So when you see contributors in information that you're reading about the financial aid process, that's what it refers to. And everyone who is a contributor to the FAFSA will need to have a studentaid.gov account. I do want to go over with you very quickly just the general eligibility requirements to complete the FAFSA for students. So for students, they do need to ultimately earn a high school diploma or its equivalent, and there'll be a place on the application to mark off they're earning a high school diploma and a place to list the school that they attended for that diploma. In order for the college or university to award the student any financial aid, they do need to be accepted for enrollment in an eligible program. So that means you do have to be admitted before we can award you any aid. Students must be U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens, and also must have a valid social security number. A few more terms that I want to go over. One of those is cost of attendance. A cost of attendance is the overall cost to attend the college or university for the school year. Cost of attendance includes a lot of different items, things like tuition and fees, as well as housing and food, whether on campus or off campus. But it also includes things like books and course materials and supplies, your transportation, miscellaneous expenses like clothing and entertainment and toiletries and things that you need to live. Why these extra expenses? Because we want to be sure that students understand the overall cost to attend that institution. It's not just making sure that you can pay the bill. You need to be sure that you do have the funds for those books and supplies and whatever else materials that you might need for your coursework. You need to be able to get to and from campus, and that can mean different things to different students. Are you living at home and driving yourself to someplace that's local? Do you require a plane ride to get to and from school? And of course, like I said, with miscellaneous expenses, it's kind of those living expenses, and students do incur those as well. So every college or university has a cost of attendance that's updated annually. Then we have what I alluded to before, the Student Aid Index, or SAI. The Student Aid Index is a number, and it's used to determine the student's eligibility for need-based aid. What it's doing is taking all of the information that you're providing on this federal aid application from student and the contributors, and then it's using a federally mandated formula to calculate this number that we're calling the Student Aid Index. And like I said, for those of you that have done this process before or heard this term before, the expected family contribution is going away, and it's being replaced with the Student Aid Index, starting with the 24-25 school year. One note with the Student Aid Index is that it can actually be a negative number. With the expected family contribution, the lowest you could have was a 0. Now with the SAI, the maximum is a negative 1,500, just in case any of you happen to see that you have a negative on your output information. Yes, that is possible. And lastly, I want to talk to you just another bit of terminology about financial need, because you will read through the financial aid process that many types of aid require a student to have financial need. So how do we determine that? We take that cost of attendance, the overall cost to attend the college or university for that school year. We subtract from it your student aid index, so that number that we get from all the data that you put on the FAFSA, and that equals the student's financial need. And so that is the maximum amount of need-based aid that the student is eligible to receive. Please note, while I did mention that the student aid index can go down to a negative 1,500, that's for federal grant eligibility. When it's related to financial need, any negative numbers default back to zero. So because we can't award aid in excess of that cost of attendance. Okay, so when we go to complete our FAFSA, we want to do it online. Giving you the very long link there on the bottom of the screen. If you can't remember that, just as long as you can get to studentaid.gov, at the top, there is a menu that says FAFSA form. You drop that down and click on complete FAFSA form. It'll take you right to where you need to go. So now, for those of you that have done this before, you will see a difference. There's a whole new color palette that we have for the FAFSA on the web. So these start some of these new slides that I'm showing you that, again, could look a little different when you go to actually complete the application. But getting started, you'll select whether you're the student or the parent that is starting the application. Parents, yes, you can go in and you can complete the student portion, but please note the student will still need to log in to provide what we call consent, which I'm going to go over, and also to electronically sign the form. So please keep that in mind, parents. If you're going to try to complete this, the student will still have to complete their, at least they're giving their consent and signing off on it electronically. So consent, this is also something new for 24-25. All the contributors to the FAFSA will have to provide their consent. And what is this consent for? It's for having your tax information directly brought into the FAFSA. Prior to now, we did have a process to do this. Some of you may have used it. It was called the data retrieval tool, but you opted into that during the actual application, and it was taking you to the IRS website. You were entering information there, and then it was transferring back. That's gone for 24-25. When you provide this consent, the FAFSA is going to automatically go out to the IRS, look for your tax data, and then automatically bring it right into your FAFSA. You won't even see this going on. Now, keep in mind that every contributor to the FAFSA has to provide the consent. If the consent is not provided, the student will be ineligible for federal student aid. So just want to let everyone know that right from the beginning. A little bit more about how this is working. It's called the Future Act Direct Data Exchange. So the Future Act is what has had the Department of Ed work with the IRS to do this direct data exchange. And so again, it's a direct transfer from the IRS into the FAFSA. It will populate most of the income questions for most of the tax filers. And like I said, you will not see the income information. You won't even see the questions. It's just going to be attached to the student's FAFSA the rest of the student's FAFSA information. There'll be minimal tax related questions left to answer. So it is still a good idea to have your tax return out when you complete the FAFSA, but there's very little that you'll have to pull from it. So now, for those that are for those students that start the application, what they'll have to do is invite their parent to complete their portion of the application. So there'll be a whole process. The FAFSA will walk them through, inviting their parent or parents, depending upon the particular situation, to complete that portion of the FAFSA. They'll have to provide the name of the parent, date of birth, social security number, and then what will happen is an email will go out to the parent and letting them know that your student has asked you to come in and complete the parent portion of the FAFSA. The email, and from what I'm told, is going to be sent in real time, so that actually if you're both sitting down at two different devices and your student goes in and starts their part first, invites you in, you can actually click from the email and start your part right then and there. So it can all be done in real time. More than one of you can be working on the application at the same time as well, from what we're being told. Okay. One thing that's a little bit different from prior years also has to do with the parents' current marital status. This is one of the items that is reported as of the day you complete the FAFSA. So like I said, there's income information, tax year information that will be from 2 years prior, 2022, but marital status is reported as of the day the FAFSA is completed. You'll have all of the possible marital statuses listed out, and you'll select whatever is appropriate for your situation. I do want to let you know that there has been a change with regard to divorced and separated parents. The way that things will work when parents are divorced or separated, it is going to go off of the parent who provided the greater portion of the student's total support. So again, the parent who provided the greater portion of the student's total support. So you may need to sit down and figure out what is the total cost of your student's support, and would be from the last 12 months, and then determine who is providing what, and then to find out who provides the greater share. If the split is exactly 50-50, then the reporting will be with the parent who provides the greater income or assets. Currently, the word "or" is in the instructions. That is something that the National Association of Financial Aid Administrators has asked the department for some clarification on that, because we don't have any information on, well, what if one of you has more income and one of you has more assets? So stay tuned for that. But currently, that's the way things are reading. And obviously, we only have to default to that if each of the parents provides equal support. Keep in mind, too, that if the divorced parent the divorced parent that provides more support is remarried, then the step parent's information will be required on the FAFSA. Another little bit of a change in terminology and change in how how the information is being reported. We now have what's called family size, formerly known as household size. So when you're in the FAFSA, what it's going to ask you is your family size the same as it was on your 2022 tax return? So this is one of the reasons why you want to have that out when you're doing this. And you can say yes or no. If yes, then it will just move forward with more questions for you. If it's not, then you can do a manual update to the family size, and the form will walk you through that and help you with who should be part of the family size. Also, the number in college will still be reported on the FAFSA, so please make sure that you are reporting that correctly, but it is no longer part of the SAI calculation. So that student aid index is no longer taking into consideration multiple children in college at the same time. Why is it still on the form, you ask? It's because it's part of the law that did the FAFSA simplification. It still required the question to be on the form, but it does not go into the calculation. And it also may be possible some of the colleges may be using that information for their institutional aid, and there may be state organizations that also want that information for state aid. So just know it's there. Please answer it correctly, but it's not going into that eligibility calculation. Okay, some information on assets, because we've got a little bit of change here as well. We have one item that's been added into the assets you could be asked about, and that item is child support received. Formerly under a section for untaxed income, we no longer have that part on the FAFSA. So child support received has now been moved into the asset section. Reporting is the amount that you received in the last full calendar year. So This is a good example, right? Coming up with this year, we are awaiting a date in December for the FAFSA to become available. And if it becomes available in December and you complete it in December and you receive child support, the last full calendar year would be the year 2022. But let's say maybe it's not going to be available till the end of the month. I don't know. And you don't fill out the form until January. So then the last full calendar year is 2023. So just wanted to, give you an example of that because it is a little bit different than some of the other ways that we report items on the FAFSA, but that's how child support will work. You may also be, you'll be asked about cash savings and checking accounts. This too, like marital status, as of the day you complete the FAFSA. Your net worth of investments, also as of the day you complete the FAFSA. There are a couple of exclusions to investments, so I'll go over those because the list of exclusions is a lot shorter than the list of inclusions. So you exclude from the net worth investments the home that you live in, the value of any life insurance, and any retirement savings. So, and please note that assets are asked of both the student and the parent. So, if students do have their own investments, they will need to report them. But again, excluding the home that you live in, the value of life insurance, and what you have saved for retirement. So whatever's in a retirement account can be whatever, whether it's a 401k, it's a non-education IRA, it's an annuity, it's a pension fund, whatever it might be. You don't have to report that. But basically everything else you do have to report. So for instance, if you own other property outside the home you live in, whether it's a house at the shore or it's a rental property or it's land, that all has to be reported. If you own stocks outside of your retirement fund, you have a money market account, mutual funds, trusts, bonds, basically everything outside of the home and the life insurance and the retirement is reported as an investment. Also included in the investments are the college savings plans. So I want to give you a little bit of detail about how they're reported, because again, a little bit different. And investments, again, as of the day you complete the FAFSA. With the college savings plans, what we're looking for are plans owned by either the student or the parent. So we're looking at the ownership of the plan initially. So who owns it, student or parent? Those are the ones we're looking for. Plans owned by others, like grandparents or aunts or uncles, not part of the investment for the FAFSA. So owned by student or parent, whether it's owned by the student or the parent, it's going to be put as a parent asset, and the amount reported is only for the student that's completing the FAFSA. This is a change. So for those of you that have had to do this before and have multiple children, you used to have to count all of the savings for all of the children. That is no longer the case. Starting with 24, 25, you'll only have to report the amount for the student completing this FAFSA. And finally, be asked about the net worth of a business or investment farm. Again, as of the day you complete the application, this can include things like land or buildings or machinery, equipment, inventory, etc. So there formerly was an exclusion for small businesses and certain types of farms that has been lifted. So whether you have a one-person business, 1,000-person business, you will have to report the net worth. Okay, so each contributor does have to sign off and submit the application. This is a little bit different. You say, well, wait, I had to provide consent early on. Why do I have to sign again? When you were providing consent, that was specifically for the tax information. And then this, when you're signing this, is basically, this is signing off on the fact that I've answered this truthfully and to the best of my ability and that type of thing. So you're signing and submitting. One thing I do want to let you know, there will be a part in the FAFSA for the student to list the colleges and universities they want this information to go to. They have to list at least one, but now can list up to 20. This has been expanded. It was 10, now it's up to 20 that can be listed at any one time. So hopefully that takes care of the vast majority of you. You've applied to 20 or fewer colleges and can get them all in there at one time. So that, I believe, should be helpful to many students who are maybe in that dozen to 15 range, that now you'll be able to put them all on the FAFSA initially. You want to make sure that you go through your part of the FAFSA until you get to that confirmation and the page that says congratulations on it. If students are going in and starting the application, they're going to get their own congratulations that their form, their portion is finished. And then parents will get their part, and then it will all link up and be complete as one application. One of the new things too is that there'll be a way to track and manage the FAFSA form as well. So you'll be able to see where it's at in the processing. But just always make sure that you're getting as far as that congratulations and confirmation page. After you complete the FAFSA and it's processed, yes, it's going out to the schools. In New Jersey, it will go to our New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, but also it's sending information back to the student. And what that's now called is a FAFSA submission summary. And if they, as long as you provide emails in this process, this FAFSA submission summary you'll be notified of it by email. And when you go to review it, it's going to have different tabs that the student can click on. There'll be a part that will show an overview of the estimated eligibility. So an estimated student aid index, as well as estimated aid eligibility. There'll be a tab for all of the FAFSA form answers. I definitely recommend, if you didn't check everything the first time, when you get this FAFSA submission summary, make sure you double check everything and review for accuracy. If you do find a mistake, there'll be a way right in the submission summary to initiate a correction. So that should make it hopefully pretty easy to correct anything if you find that something's wrong. You'll also have a place to review all the schools that you put on the form and some information about them, and then your next steps. You can also print out the FAFSA submission summary for your records. I do recommend printing, saving, whatever you'd like to do, so that you have the information for your records. Okay, great. You got through your FAFSA, but that's not the end of the financial aid process. So I did make mention that the FAFSA is what's required generally at a minimum, but schools may ask for more information. Some of you may already be in the process or have completed the CSS profile for all of the schools that your student is interested in. CSS profile is different from the FAFSA. Your FAFSA is for federal student aid. The CSS profile is a form that's put out by the College Board, used by a few hundred schools across the country. And what are they using it for? They're using it for their institutional dollars. And so they want more information from you to help them determine who will get those institutional dollars. For the most part, they are private schools using the profile, but there are some public institutions. But again, schools with a heavy amount of institutional dollars to spend. The profile may ask you questions and ask for more in-depth information than what you saw on the FAFSA, particularly when it comes to the assets. So they may ask about the equity in your home, how much you have in your retirement savings. You also may be asked for non-custodial parent information. So when we have divorced or separated parents, it is only going to be the one parent and potentially a step parent on the form, but the other parent may be asked for information through this CSS profile process. So just know that you may have to submit it. Only submit it to schools that are asking for it. If a school doesn't need it, you don't need to submit it. How do you find out how much aid you're eligible for? Well, that's through the financial aid award offer. In order to receive a financial aid award offer, you do need to be admitted to the college or university, and then you did need to have them listed on your FAFSA. Because the financial aid award offer is it's taking all of your aid eligibility and putting it in one place. So are you getting a merit-based scholarship from the college? Is there some need-based aid from the college? Oh, here's your federal eligibility. If it's in New Jersey, you may be eligible for state aid. So we're putting all of those resources in one spot and giving you that comprehensive aid offer. You may receive the aid offer in the mail, by email, through a portal. Regardless of how the information is sent to the student, what's contained in it would all be the similar kinds of information. It's detailing the types and amounts of aid the student is eligible for during the upcoming school year. It should also provide you with cost information as well, but it's giving you that breakdown of the specific awards, how much they're for, and what is the grand total over the school year. You may be asked to provide additional documentation to your school. Some schools do want to double check what you put on the FAFSA and make sure it's correct. Also, the federal government selects applications for verification, and that too is performed by the colleges and universities. Federal verification is not done in Washington, it's done at the college level. And also for those remaining in New Jersey, if you're eligible for the state grant program, the state of New Jersey also selects applicants for verification, and they contact students directly for that information. So if you do get asked to provide additional information, just please be sure to submit it as soon as you can and to whoever asked for it, because the student's aid won't be finalized until not only what we're asking for is received, but it does also have to be reviewed. So one note that's very important when you are submitting additional documentation, please be sure that whatever files you're sending to us, or for many items, taking a picture of it and uploading that is acceptable. So please make sure when you're sending documents to the school, to the state, wherever it may be, that we can see the entire document. So don't cut off half of it, and that it's legible. It's very important. I just was having this issue today with a student, and we needed some identity documentation, and the documentation was blurry. We have to be able to see and read what it says. Or if we do need a tax return, we need to be able to see the numbers. Don't cut the column off with the actual numbers on it. So please keep that in mind. And then also, if you're going to be using student loans, your school will walk you through the process. Whoopsie. So we realize that you're using income information from 2022 on your FAFSA, and we're in 2023, almost into 2024. So life has happened in the interim. So we do understand that. So if there has been a change in your circumstances, the financial aid office may be able to address that. Don't try to make changes to your FAFSA. And actually with the data, direct data exchange, I don't believe you'll be able to, even if you wanted to. Any changes to what's on the application go through the college. So you'll have to give us the information about the circumstance. I've given you some circumstances on the screen. This is not an exhaustive list of circumstances, but it's things that we see pretty often. So if there's been a job loss, or if you were on unemployment and now those benefits have ended, if there's some other loss or reduction of other income, you have unreimbursed medical expenses, the list can go on and on. But know that the college may be able to take a look at that and recalculate the student's aid eligibility. If you do need to do this process, again, check with the colleges and universities for their actual process for submitting information, because we do have to document your circumstance. So just a phone call is not going to complete the process. For instance, if it's been a job loss, so what kinds of things do we need? Well, we'll need, if you have a termination letter, if there's anything, any information about severance pay. Have you filed for unemployment? Okay, if yes, give us a stub so we know how much are you receiving, when will it end? Those are the kinds of documents that we need in order to make any changes to the income information on the FAFSA. Okay, so as you move forward in the financial aid process, you don't want to forget about sources of aid and making sure that you've applied to all the sources that are available. You want to check with the college or university to see what they have available. They may have aid that's based on merit, meaning based on prior academic performance, grades, test scores, a combination of those, but not financial information, academic information. School may have need-based aid, so aid based on financial information. Schools are very different with how they decide to spend their institutional dollars. Some schools may have only merit or only need, or some may have a mix of both. Again, that's information you can find on the college or university's website, on the financial aid, on their financial aid pages. Completing the FAFSA takes care of all your federal aid programs, and for New Jersey, takes care of New Jersey state aid. You do have some other sources for aid. So things like athletic scholarships. As you're a student and athlete and attending a Division I or II school, then there may be the possibility of an athletic scholarship. Outside scholarships, have a whole slide on those, so we'll talk about those in a moment. If I have any veterans in the audience, you may be able to transfer your education benefits to your dependent. Resident assistantships. This is for students who are living on campus. In future years, you may be able to basically be a supervisor on a floor in a residence hall. And being a resident assistant generally comes with some sort of financial portion, whether it's the room paid for, meals, something like that. And then there are also tax credits for higher education. I do recommend talking with your tax preparer about those. If your tax preparer is you, then you can certainly take a look at publication 970. So again, IRS publication 970 is all the information about higher ed benefits related to taxes. Let's see. So that I give you some more information about outside scholarships. And what are they? So outside scholarships are scholarships from sources outside of a college or university. So things like companies and foundations and clubs, religious groups. There's a whole, wide range of possibilities for outside scholarships. And you do want to use your local resources. So the counseling office and, the local area for scholarships through local sources, but then also using the web for a more global reach. I've provided you with some scholarship resources. All of them are free. A couple of them are scholarship search engines. So like the first one I listed, fastweb.com. That is a site that's supposed to have several 100,000 scholarships. Students enter a profile of themselves, and then FastWeb takes that profile and matches it to its database of scholarships. So the student, and then returns to the student those that they may qualify for. So it's not doing the application process. Students still have to apply. It's cutting down on that research end of it. So for those of you who remember before the internet, and if you wanted to do this kind of search for college, you would have to go to the library and get a book that was about 1,000 pages long and sit and read description after description after description. Well, a site like FastWeb is cutting out that process and doing that all electronically for the student. And this type of scholarship search is not just something to do during the senior year of high school. It's something to continue to search on while the student's in college as well. Right now, when students are applying for outside scholarships, they're applying for those that are open to high school seniors. But then when they're in college, then they may be eligible for the scholarships that are available just to college students. And things change. Now I'm in college. Now I have a college GPA. I've joined this club. I've joined this organization. So that may expand my eligibility. So it's something to be almost constantly doing and searching for. Okay, so now when we're reviewing our financial aid award offers, we want to know and understand the types of aid that are listed on that award offer. And so let's say you were the student, you listed 20 colleges on your FAFSA, and congratulations, you got admitted to all 20 of them. So what happens then? You would then receive 20 financial aid award offers from each of those institutions. So as you're reviewing, you want to take a look and see, what do I have? Do I have anything that says grant on it? Grants are free money, do not have to be repaid, and generally and often based on financial need. Not always, but can be. Main thing with grants, you like them, they're free money, don't have to be repaid. You may see federal work study on a financial aid award offer, as federal work study is a need-based work program through the federal government, and the FAFSA is the application. This is earned money because you are earning money for work while you're in school. Then you may see loans on your award letter. Loans do have to be repaid. So they are borrowed money and do have to be repaid. But even within loans, there are, different options and things like that. But just keep in mind that when you do see loan, it does have to be repaid. And finally, scholarships. On this slide, it refers to scholarships as earned money. Why is that? Well, because with a scholarship, you've earned that in the sense that if you're getting it because you got good grades, you earn those grades. If you have a talent and you're getting a scholarship for it, that means you really worked hard and earned that scholarship for that talent and working on that talent or some other characteristic that you have. Scholarships too do not have to be repaid. So again, anything that's a scholarship on the end doesn't have to be repaid, just like grants. Okay. I'm just going to give you a very, very, very brief information about the aid programs because there are some additional resources that I gave to Mrs. Nectarline, and she'll be getting them out on the website so that you can take a look. And there's information in those resources. Also, just for the federal, studentaid.gov will give you all the information you could possibly want to know on all of the federal aid programs. The federal government's main grant program is the federal Pell Grant. It's a need-based grant, so you do have to have financial need. It does go to the neediest of those with financial need. It's available at full and part-time. For the current school year, the annual maximum is $7,395. FSEOG stands for the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. This is generally awarded to students who also receive the federal Pell Grant. What's different is that with the FSEOG, schools that participate in this program, we have a limited amount of money to spend. And so that's why deadlines and priority filing are important, because if you are eligible for something like FSEOG and you file too late, even if you qualify and the money's gone, it's gone. It's not an everlasting pool of money. FSEOG can be awarded for up to $4,000 a year, but it's at the discretion of the college or university. Teach Grant. This is a grant for students interested in teaching in low-income districts in high-need subject areas. It's not need-based, but you do have to complete a teaching component after you complete your program in order to maintain the award as a grant. If you don't fulfill the teaching requirement, the grant will revert back to a loan, which means it will have to be repaid. So it's a very generous program, but students really should take a look at studentaid.gov if they're interested in teaching, to look at all the ins and outs of the Teach Grant to make sure it's the right program for them. From the state of New Jersey, HESA.org, HESAA.org is your resource for all things related to state aid. The NJ TAG, or Tuition Aid Grant, is the state's main grant program. It is a need-based grant program for students who are New Jersey residents and remain in New Jersey for college. And it does, the amount that you can receive through TAG does vary based on the type of institution. So if you are eligible, the amount you may receive at a private school like Monmouth versus a community college is going to be different. The award amounts are more tied to the actual cost of the institution. EOF stands for Education Opportunity Fund. This is a program for both academically and financially disadvantaged students. And basically there is a program at all of the, I believe, virtually all of the New Jersey institutions. NJ STARS is for students who are in the top 15% of their class. They can go to their local community college and have their tuition and required fees paid for. That's the NJ STARS 1. So if this is something that you're interested in, you do, and you qualify, you do NJ STARS 1 at the community college, complete your program there. And then if you do complete it and meet a couple other requirements, you can go on to a 4-year institution, any of the 4 years in New Jersey, and receive up to a $2,500 scholarship. So that's NJ STARS 2. Some things that people don't realize, you have to do 1 before you can do 2. So again, great information, whole fact sheet about it at HESA.org. And also, We have the Community College Opportunity Grant and Garden State Guarantee. So where NJ Stars that I just talked about, that's a more of a merit-based program from the state of New Jersey. The Community College Opportunity Grant and Garden State Guarantee are need-based programs. Your income has to fall below a certain level to qualify. The Community College Opportunity Grant is available at community colleges, so year 1 and 2. Garden State Guarantee is available at public four-year institutions for year 3 and 4. You don't have to do the community college and then move on to the 4-year with this program. If you do attend a 4-year public institution, that's fine. It's just that the Garden State Guarantee doesn't kick in until the 3rd and 4th years if you qualify. I know that's a lot of information. If you're potentially interested in that, go check out all the information on HISA.org for those programs. So let's say you've exhausted all your grants and scholarships, all the opportunities you have, and you still need more funding. What are you to do? Well, there are some loan options. The federal direct loan program is for students. The funding comes from the federal government. The loans do not require cosigners and do not have credit checks. The FAFSA is the application for the federal direct loan program. The loan amounts, however, are limited. So first-year students can borrow a maximum of $5,500 through the direct loan program. It does increase to $6,500 in sophomore year and then $7,500 in junior and senior year. But we do recommend exhausting that first before, again, moving on to something else, like the federal Parent Plus loan. Parent Plus is a loan from the federal government, but it's for parents. It is a credit-based loan. A parent is the borrower, and the parent is responsible for repayment of the loan, not the student. If that doesn't interest you, then there are also private education loans offered by various banks, lenders, credit unions. These are loans for education. They are credit-based. Different from the Parent Plus, they do allow students to borrow, but students need a cosigner, particularly underclass students. They definitely need a cosigner. And I tell families, if you're using a private loan, to be prepared to have a cosigner for the 4 years of the undergraduate education. With both the Parent Plus and a private education loan, you can borrow what is needed to cover your balance due on tuition and fees, on room, on housing, food. If you need extra money for books or transportation or those miscellaneous expenses, you can borrow for those funds with a loan like Parent Plus or a private education loan. Obviously, you do have to repay it, but if you're in a situation where you can't put any money out, yes, you can borrow for those additional expenses. Okay, so some tips. Hopefully I gave you some during the presentation, more during the earlier parts of the presentation, but I do want to just give you some other bits of information that will help you in having a smoother financial aid process. I can't stress it enough. Read everything. Read all mail and email promptly that's received from colleges and universities, not just from the financial aid office, just to make sure that there's no action that's needed on whatever they're writing you about. You don't want to miss out on an opportunity because you didn't read, an email or something like that. Read the instructions carefully on any forms. Read the instructions on this FAFSA very carefully. For those of you that have done it before, you want to make sure you're reading it because things may be different and you may be answering questions differently than you've been used to with maybe an older child. For new families, you've never done this before, so just make sure that you're reading the instructions carefully. Also, I did forget to mention with the FAFSA too, for each of the questions, there should also be help text that you can roll over and get more information. So know that that's also there to help you instruction-wise. Review everything before submitting. You can certainly do that before you submit the FAFSA. And then when we talked about the FAFSA submission summary that comes afterward, checking that, because if you miss something the first go around, double checking that and catching anything that's wrong early on will be helpful during the financial aid process. And always keep copies of everything so that you know what you've done, whether it's the FAFSA itself. If you've borrowing loans, you definitely want to keep copies of your master promissory notes so that you know what you've signed off on and it's not a surprise later on. Students do need to be involved in the financial aid process because guess what, students, it's your financial aid. So really this aid all belongs to the students. Also, parents, there's a privacy law that kicks in when they go to college, and things like their financial aid and their billing become private information. Before you panic, schools do have ways for students to release this type of information to someone else, but just know that that is for real. And if you call, maybe the financial aid office or the billing office, and they're not able to tell you certain information because the student hasn't released it, we're following the federal law. So just keep that in mind. And also communication from colleges relating to financial aid and billing, all that money type of stuff does go directly to the student. They're the one attending here. They're the one responsible. So yes, I understand parents, you may be paying and things like that, but realize this information does go directly to the student. Bills are addressed directly to the student. So students, keep your parents involved. It's not all on the student. It's not all on the parents. You do need to form a partnership to do, to do all of this. Whether you guys make a deal, I forward all my emails to you, mom or dad, so that you can review what I have to do as well. So just to keep that information in mind. And certainly when you have questions, talk to the financial aid office. For the Q&A part of today, I am happy to answer any general questions that anyone may have. But if you have a very specific question about aid at a particular school, how they might handle your special circumstance or something like that, you'll definitely want to direct that to that particular college or university so that they can tell you how to, to move forward in the process. Generally with financial aid offices, there's a multitude of ways to contact us, whether it's in person, by phone, virtually. So don't be afraid to, reach out and talk to the financial aid office for assistance. And that means that you all have made it to the end. So I do appreciate all of you who did come out tonight to watch this live. And as Mrs. Nectarline said, it will be recorded. If you feel you need to go back and listen again, I do understand, and that will be posted for you. What I'm going to do at the moment, I'm going to stop screen sharing so that we can then move into the Q&A part of this evening.
Thank you. Oh, my voice is less than it was earlier. Good evening, everybody. I swear I had a better voice when we started. I think Kristen, I got to several while you were talking.
Yes.
Such great information. I actually feel like I need to go back and rewatch this. And just a couple of things that came up for our audience that's still tuning in. And thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. And of course, it's recorded. We'll have it available. A few things came up that I wanted to share just kind of on behalf of the high school. And that's first is about our local scholarships. And as I'm chatting, please, everyone, use the Q&A if there's anything, because we do have one that we'll answer live, but I think I got to most. But as far as scholarships go, as you can imagine right now, it's October 26th. Our absolute top focus right now is helping students meet deadlines, with our biggest one really of the whole year being next week, followed by more early action, early decision, and then regular decision. However, before regular decision deadlines come up in January and February, we do sort of start to shift to what I call like money season and money talk. So our seniors will begin receiving information about scholarships probably right after Thanksgiving. That's around the same time that many scholarships start coming our way. So we start getting scholarships from everywhere, from the local all the way up to the national platforms. We will share those through email. We'll have some organized fashion. I don't want to give a firm answer because we used to post them in Naviance, which was our former college and career software. And as you all know, we no longer use Naviance and we are fully on Score. And we will be looking into ways to share those via Score, if not some type of running Google Doc database where we keep all scholarships. More from the local area, we do run a program that we're really proud of every year. It's our annual local scholarship program. If you go onto the Hunterdon Central website and type in local scholarships, you will see it on there, but it is last year. So please do not fill out any information that says 2023. I know that's the year we're in, but it happens in February. So if you're seeing it for local scholarships 2023 for Hunterdon Central, that's last year's program. The 2024 local scholarship program will begin in February of 24. That is approximately a $150,000 scholarship program. We post somewhere between 75 and 85 scholarships just from the local community. Seniors can apply for as many of those as they wish. They're smaller scholarships, usually averaging around $1,000, and they're usually one time only, but applying for several of those, and I'll have seniors who apply for 20 or 30 of those, can really add up and contribute to at least freshman year, if not more. And that whole program culminates in a really nice awards night that we have every June for seniors. So if you've had older children go through, you probably know what we're talking about, but that will come in February. Outside of just the local region, any scholarship that we get our hands on, and I am emailed in the winter with scholarships daily, we will get out in some organized fashion and format for seniors to constantly browse. Currently on the Hunterdon Central website, we do have a couple search engines under scholarship information. You can access those. But a lot more scholarship information will come once we get through the next couple of weeks and this big push for regular, for admission applications. So I want to throw that in there. As I hear new things on financial aid and FAFSA, we'll get those updated on our school website. Some things you're seeing on there right now are for the most recent financial aid years. But you know what you know tonight from Kristen. This is what we know. It is a really unique year for financial aid. In previous years, we would have had families applying for financial aid by now. So this is really unusual to not have the ability to file the FAFSA yet. But Kristen, I'm sure will keep us updated as she hears, and we'll do the same and keep you all updated. So I just wanted to share those couple of things. And I don't know if anything came up there for you, Kristen, that you wanted to piggyback on, but there is one question in the Q&A
Sure.
that I couldn't answer. I think I know the answer, but I wanted to leave it to you. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, wait.
Do you
so
see it?
Now
sorry,
I can go in.
it?
Sorry. Okay. Oh, okay. So the question has to do with non-filers. So the question was specifically about the student not filing a tax return, but I could have some of you as parents that don't file, aren't required to file a tax return. That's fine. What will still happen now with this new data exchange process is, so if it's a student that's not filing, they still provide consent on the FAFSA because it's still going to go out to the IRS and confirm that non-filing status, and then report that back and put that in as the student's not only filing status, but then as their income information. So so the important thing to note, it's totally fine if they're not required, if they didn't work enough to be required to file tax return, totally fine. But they still will want to provide that consent so that that data can be confirmed and added into that income portion of the FAFSA.
All right, I'm going to mark that as answered live. Thank you, Kristen.
Okay.
At this time, there are no other questions in here. I'm very surprised because there's always so many. So what I'll do, while those of you that are still on tonight think of something you want to put in here, and by all means, if we can answer it, we will. One thing I want to mention is, when FAFSA opens up, we often get questions as counselors. So, you have our senior counselors, Mr. Kerberly, Mrs. Wagner. Right now, Mr. Macri is working with the middle part of the alphabet, and we'll be welcoming Mr. Williams next week, actually, as our new full-time counselor for the middle part of the alphabet. I will say, though, when the FAFSA opens, we will probably not be, in all transparency, your best resource for FAFSA questions. There's a reason Kristen's here tonight, and that's because Kristen's the expert in this area. Financial aid counseling is a completely different profession than what we do as secondary school counselors. So we can give very, very basic information. The FAFSA is open. You will need to look at this year's certain year's tax documents. But we do get questions from families a lot about where to put money in preparation for college, how to answer certain lines on the FAFSA. And unfortunately, that's not our profession or area of expertise. And the last thing we want to do is give false information about something as important as financial aid. So FAFSA.gov, studentaid.gov, these are fantastic websites with factual information. Do make sure you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, on the .gov sites.
Yes.
Government websites, they're not filling out like FAFSA.net or FAFSA.com. .gov are the official government websites, very important to take note of. But Kristen said it earlier, and I want to reiterate, when your student's applying to a college, that, you know, just like the admission office is a resource, the financial aid office can be a resource, even more so when your student becomes an admitted student. So when you become an admitted student, you're falling under the umbrella of enrollment management under admissions and financial aid. And financial aid counselors are available at institutions to help students who are admitted, who may be working through the FAFSA, the CSS profile, and other financial aid form. So please take advantage of them, because we are not expertly trained in the area of financial aid and financial aid packaging. So definitely reaching out to the financial aid office will be your best resource. And I don't know if you got to this, I was answering questions throughout, Kristen, but will there still be a toll-free number to call, 1-800 number, as families are filing the FAFSA?
So yes, it's in existence now. I have not heard that it's going anywhere. 1-800-4-FED-AID. So I never can remember the numbers that go with that, but 1-800, the number 4, then FED-AID is the number to call with questions. Also, while I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer about this, but this is such an overhaul to the financial aid process that when we do find the date that it is available, you may want to wait like a day or two to complete it. During a normal year, the site can get overwhelmed. I remember last year or the year before that, we had parents complaining because it was 3 and 4 days later and they still couldn't get into the site and things like that. And I feel like now with the pent up demand and the changes, so I know we want to make sure you get things filed within deadlines for colleges and things like that. But I'm just saying we might want to, test the waters a little bit before jumping in and seeing how it's going in the first, day or two. So,
Right.
And also not to panic that if for some reason for whatever reason, you couldn't get to it on day one, it's okay. That's day one. The college is going to give you more than one day to complete it. So, just trying to, you know, put some expectations potentially out there, for what may happen on a technology end of things. I have no idea. Maybe it'll be the most awesome year ever. But just to be on the safe side. Oh, and I did forget I can't believe I forgot to say this. When I spoke about creating that studentaid.gov account, or as formerly known as the FSA ID, if you don't have one, if you as a parent, you don't have one yet, now you have whatever student is applying, you can do that now. And it's definitely recommended that you do it now. Why? Because, as I said, with that, you do have to enter a social security number, and that is check with the Social Security Administration. It's not in real time that check happens. So you'll want to get your studentaid.gov account situated before hopefully before December. That gives you a little bit more than a month for everybody that will possibly need to be on the FAFSA, so that way it's confirmed before you try to complete the FAFSA. Previously, you could do it while you were in the application. From what we're hearing, that's not going to be possible anymore. You're going to have it before you start, or you're going to have to do it before, then at that point, before you can actually start the application. So that's why I say, if you're so excited tonight, you could, go ahead and do that. And I do recommend, while yes, it's like, private information and things like that, you're going to have to write it down and keep everybody's information separated. This is student, this is mom, this is dad, because we have so much trouble. Sometimes people are trying to log in with the wrong person's credentials and things like that. And that creates problems when you're trying to do things. So that's also why you want to keep everybody's information separated, write it down so that you have it all to keep from year to year. That's my commercial on that.
Yeah, so good advice for sure. Question here, and I think I got this one earlier, the estimator, availability of the estimator.
It should be there. I didn't check it again today, but they had few weeks ago they had put it up and then it magically disappeared because I went to put it in, went to put the screenshot in the presentation and it disappeared. Something happened. They had to take it down for a few days and then it came back. That's how I was able to get you the screenshot. So the last
Yeah.
time I checked it last weekish, it was there.
Okay.
So if it's gone again, I apologize. Then it's something on federal student aids end, but yes, it should be there now, and it will calculate the SAI, not the EFC.
Perfect. Okay, great,
Okay.
great. So we've answered that. Well, a parent just indicated thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Oh,
it's there. Good.
oh, good. Yes, we have confirmation that it is there. So
Okay, good,
yay.
good. Well, I don't see much more coming through. You're very welcome. Thank you for tuning in. So we realize families, this is going to be kind of a wild next 6 weeks or so while we wait on this. We don't know in December. We're just going to wait and see. I love your advice, Kristen, to give it a day or two to work out the kinks. I imagine that site is just going to be overwhelmed for sure. I know we do have a good number of families in early action, and certainly our handful of seniors with early decision, those families that are going to get results back, potentially in mid-December. I mean, we've had a handful of seniors already hear back from rolling admission colleges. So there's going to be angst to get that
Yes.
financial aid
Yes.
package, and you can't get that till you file. So we understand families. Bear with us in this year. We'll share everything and anything and everything that we know coming through. And yeah, thank you guys
Yep.
for tuning in. And we'll get our financial aid materials, whatever we can get our hands on that's accurate. We'll post to our financial aid page. But just remember your studentaid.gov, anything.gov. Those are your websites. And if you're a parent of a high school senior, you're probably on different mailing lists. Your students are on a lot of mailing lists. You're going to know when this thing gets ready and goes live. I don't think it's going to be a secret. So stay tuned for that. But keep an eye on something else in there.
Yeah, we got a couple more questions. Sorry, that came in. We
Yeah,
got some
sure.
thank yous, so we appreciate
Yeah.
those. But somebody did ask about getting that studentaid.gov account to just for ease of use. I'm going to tell you to go to studentaid.gov. They have a search because it's a very, very long link to get to it. But if you go into their search and put student aid account or FSA ID, it will take you to the page that you need to get to. So that's why the main thing is if you can at least get to studentaid.gov, you can find everything else that you need.
Okay. All right, everyone. Stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for coming out again. Share with families. We're recorded. We'll have it on our Hunterdon Central YouTube station. Kristen, thank you.
Yep.
I miss seeing you in person in our auditorium, but hey, any way we can get the information out, all the best to you and the staff at Monmouth as you guys continue to work through the overhaul year. We so appreciate your time as always.
Well, thank you again for having me, and thank you to all of you who came out on this balmy, October evening. Yes.
Crazy, right? All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Take care.